Testing 1, 2. Drop that volume down a little bit. It's not a huge crowd. How is that? Get away from that. All right, folks. Happy Halloween. We're going to be doing these little readings from Something Wicked This Way Comes. This is being told from the point of view of two young boys, Will and Jim. And I think they're about your age. So basically, they've had some early adventures with various characters. Will's father, I think it is. Yep. Will's father's in the movie, a librarian in a small town librarian. And on the horizon, something wicked this way comes. They ran from the town, across fields, and both froze under a rail bridge, with the moon ready beyond the hills, and the meadows trembling with a fur of dew. Wham! The carnival train thundered the bridge. The calliope wailed. There's no one playing it, Jim stared up. Jim, no jokes. Mother's honor, look! Going away. Away. The calliope pipes shimmered with star explosions. But no one sat at the high keyboard. The wind, sluicing ice water air in the pipes, made the music. The boys ran. The train curved away, gonging its undersea funeral bell. Sunk, rusted, green moss, tolling, tolling. Then the engine whistle blew a great steam whiff, and Will broke out in pearls of ice. Way late at night, Will had heard, how often? Train whistles jetting steam along the rim of sleep, forlorn, alone, far, no matter how near they came. Sometimes he woke and found tears on his cheeks. Sometimes he would wonder why, and lay back and listen, and he would think, yes, they do make me cry. The trains going east, going west, the trains afar, gone in country deeps, they drown in the tides of sleep that escape towns. Those trains and their grieving sounds were lost forever between stations, not remembering where they had been, not guessing where they might go. So it was with all trains ever. Yet this train, the wails of a lifetime were gathered in it, from other nights in other slumbering years, the howl of moon-dreamed dogs, the sleep of river-cold winds through January porch screens which stopped the blood. 1,000 fire sirens weeping, or worse. The breath and protests of 1 billion people, dead or dying, not wanting to be dead. Their groans, their sighs burst out of the earth. Tears jumped to Will's eyes. He lurched, he knelt, he pretended to tie the lace on one shoe. But then he saw Jim's hands clasp his ears, his eyes wet too. The whistle shrieked. Will shrieked against the shriek. Then billions of voices ceased instantly, as if the train had plunged in a firestorm off the earth. The train skimmed on softly, slithering, black pennants fluttering, black confetti lost on its own sick, sweet candy wind, down the hill, with the boys pursuing, the air so cold, they eat ice cream with each breath. Some story. The carnival has now come to the town, and the boys decide to explore. And they get caught. Put them down, said a gentle voice. Hung high, Jim and Will glanced over at a second man standing tall beyond the chains. Down, he said again. And they were carried through the brass forest of wild but uncomplaining brutes and set in the dust. We were curious. The second man was tall as a lamppost. His pale face, lunar park marks denting it, cast a light on those who stood below. His vest was the color of fresh blood, and the sun-yellow gem which stared from the tie pin thrust in his cravat was the same unblinking shade as his eyes. But in this instant, swiftly with utter clearness, it was the suit that fascinated Will, for it seemed to be woven of boar bramble, clock spring hair, bristle, and a sort of ever-trembling, ever-glistening dark hemp. The suit caught the light and stirred like a bed of black tweed thorns, intimately itching, covering the man's long body with a motion it seemed he should excruciate, cry out, and tear his clothes off. Yet he stood moon calm, inhabiting his itchweed suit, watching Jim's mouth with his yellow eyes, and he never looked once at Will. The name is Dark. So, after a whole bunch of very scary adventures and mysterious people, can't trust the carnival folks, can you now? The boys go to Will's father and tell him about everything they saw. Which if you watch this, you'll never see all that kind of stuff. So, the boys begin to talk to Will's father. So each taking his part in their own good time, the boys told of the wandering by lightning rod salesmen, the prediction of storms to come, the long after midnight train, the suddenly uninhabited meadow, the moon-blown tents, the untouched but full-wept calliope, then the light of a noon showering of ordinary midway with hundreds of Christians wandering through, but no lions to be tossed to. Only the maze where time lost itself backwards and forwards. Only the out-of-order carousel, the dead supper hour, Mr. Cougar, and the boy with the eyes that has seen all the glistery tripes of the world shaped like hung and dripping sins, and all the sins tether-hooked and running red, verminous. This boy, with the eyes of a man who has lived forever, seen too much, might like to die, but doesn't know how. The boy stopped for a breath. Miss Foley, the carnival again, the carousel run wild, the ancient cougar mummy gasping in moonlight, exhaling silver dust, dead then resurrected, in a chair where green lightning struck his skeleton. All of it a storm, minus rain, thunder, the parade, the cigar store basement, the hiding, and then the last of them here, finished, done with the telling. For a long moment, Will's father sat staring blindly into the center of the table. Then his lips moved. I believe. So now they start going through the library's records and find some interesting things. Looks like we're going to do a lot of talking about one particular carnival, where it comes from, where it's going, what it's up to. We thought it never hit town before, yet by God, look here. He tapped a yellow newspaper ad dated October 12th, 1888, and ran his finger under the title. J.C. Cougar and G.M. Dark presents Pandemonium Theater Company, combined sideshows and Unnatural Museums International. JC? GM? Said Jim. Those are the same initials as on the throwaways around town this week. But it couldn't be the same men. No, Will's father said, rubbing his elbows. My goose pimples run counter to that. He laid forth another old paper, 1860, 1846. Same ad, same names, same initials. Dark and Cougar, Cougar and Dark. They came and went, but only every 20, 30, 40 years, so people would forget. Where were they all these other years? Traveling? And more than traveling, always in October. October 1846, October 1860, October 1888, October 1910, October now, here, tonight. His voice trailed off. Beware the autumn people. What? It's an old religious tract. Pastor Newgate Phillips, I think. I read it as a boy. How does it go again? He tried to remember. He licked his lips. He did remember it. For some, autumn comes early, stays late through life, where October follows Saturday. October follows September, and November touches October. And then, instead of December in Christ's birth, there is no Bethlehem star, no rejoicing. But September comes again, and old October, and so on down the years, with no winter, no spring, or revivifying summer. For these beings, fall is their only season, the only weather. There is no choice beyond. Where do they come from? The dust. Where do they go? The grave. Does the blood stir in their veins? No, the night wind. What ticks in their head? The worm. What speaks from their mouth? The toad. What sees from their eyes? The snake. What hears with their ears? The abyss between the stars. They sift the human storm for souls. They eat flesh for reason, fill tomes with sinners. They frenzy forth, all moons sullen, and surely cloud all clear-run waters. The spider web hears them, trembles, breaks. Such are the autumn people. Beware them. After a pause, the boys both exhaled. The autumn people! That's them, sure! Scary yet? But who are these people in the carnival? Where do they come from? What do they want? What do they do? Well, the stuff of nightmare is their plain bread. They butter it with pain. They set their clocks by death watch beetles and thrive the centuries. They were the men with the leather ribbon whips who sweated up the pyramid, seasoning it with other people's salt and other people's cracked hearts. They coursed through Europe on white horses of the plague. They whispered to Caesar that he was mortal and then sold daggers at half price in a March sale. Some must have been lazing clowns, foot props for emperors, princes, and epileptic popes. Then out on the road, gypsies in time. Their populations grew as the world grew, and there was more delicious variety of pain to thrive on. The train put wheels under them, and here they run down the long road out of the Gothic and Baroque. Look at their wagons and coaches. The carvings are like medieval shrines. All of the stuff once drawn by horses, mules, or maybe men. All those years? Jim's voice swallowed himself. The same people? You think Mr. Cougar and Mr. Dark are both a couple of 100 years old? Riding that merry-go-round can shave off a year or two anytime they want, right? Why then, the abyss opened at Will's feet. They could live forever. Well, the boys are on the run. Mr. Dark is after them. And he has brought one of his allies, the Dust Witch, and they're caught. Her fingernails fluttered, darted, feather-cold, winter-water air. Her pickled green frog's breath crawled their flesh and pimples as she sang softly, mewing, humming, glistering. Her babes, her boys, her friends of the slick snail-tracked roof, the straight-flung arrow, the stricken, sky-drowned balloon. Darling needle dragonfly, sew up these mouths so they not speak. Touch so, her fingernails stabbed, punched, drew, stabbed, punched along their lower and upper lips until the thread-bound pouch shut with an invisible thread. Darning needle dragonfly, sew up these ears so they not hear. Cold sand funneled into Will's ears, burying her voice. Muffled, far away, she chanted on with a rustle, tick, tickle, tap, flourish of caliper hands. Moss grew in Jim's ears, swiftly sealing him deep. Darling needle dragonfly, sew up these eyes so they not see. Her white, hot fingerprints rolled back the stricken eyeballs to throw the lids down with a bang, like a great tin door slammed shut. Will saw a billion flashbulbs explode and then suck to darkness with unseen darling needle insect out there somewhere, prancing, fizzling like an insect drawn to a sun-warmed honeypot. As closeted voices stitched off their senses forever and a day beyond. Darling needle dragonfly, have done with eye, ear, lip, and tooth. Finish hem, so dark, mound dust, heap with slumber sleep. Now tie all these knots so ever neat. Pump silence in blood like sand in river deep. So. The witch, somewhere outside the boys, lowered her hands. The boys stood silent. The illustrated man took his embrace from them and stepped back. The woman from dust sniffed at her twin triumphs and ran her loving hand over her little statues. That's all we're going to read for now. You'll have to watch the show and find out what happens.